Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to Listen Up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Listen Up. As you can see already, we got a pretty special video on the screen. We thought we'd share it with you guys today, switch it up a little bit, and show you a video to kind of base the topic around. Of course, we're just about a half hour away now as we're recording from the men's March Madness to start, and about 24 hours away from the women's March Madness to start. We have Elle Duncan, Shanae Agumake, and Andrea Carter with us here. We're going to share a nice little clip of Shanae sharing UConn and USC with us. Take a listen to this.
But to me, I think it's going to be really interesting because if you think about the most watched women's game this year, right? USC, UConn, either Paige Beckers or Juju Watkins will not be in the Final Four. I was mad. I wanted them both. But the fact that that's going to happen potentially in the Elite Eight to me is going to be super fun.
It's so amazing.
Well, it's indeed gonna get a little. It's gonna get a lot of fun. I feel like there's always a possibility for a Cinderella, but as soon as the bracket came out, I feel like a lot of people started to talk about the possibility of UConn and USC meeting 2 years in a row in the Elite Eight. And of course, it was the most watched game we learned yesterday during the regular season when we went down there to watch it in person. So this could be a very, very exciting and special matchup. And I can't imagine how many people would watch it if it indeed happens again in the Elite Eight.
So I have now I agree with Shanae, right? In a sense, but I have something for you and everybody else this morning. I appreciate you joining me, Ryan. March 20th. We are just right around the corner from obviously the first round matchup on Saturday. Can't wait. And I know that your tasting room food dinner is going to go down that much more sweeter when UConn gets that blowout win on Saturday. Let me not talk too soon. But so I have something to propose to you this morning. I have to ask you this. Consider, why is it that, now you mentioned it's going to get fun, but why is it that we seem like it's like I don't know if she didn't really say it's a bad thing, but obviously, so we wanted, I think a lot of people wanted to see Juju and Paige in the Final Four. Ryan, but just speaking on behalf of UConn fans, do you really actually want to see this team in the Final Four or the championship game, depending on how if the bracket would be different? And the reason that I bring this to the table with you today is because don't you think just by that matchup, no matter what round it is, don't you think that that's a treat in itself? I mean, all I'm saying is we're sitting here and we're like, Ryan, I don't really see a difference if it's championship, Final Four, Elite Eight, Sweet 16. Just so that you can get by them, I think that that's really all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a great matchup in the regular season. I think UConn really struggled in the first half, but we talked about the fight, the way they came back in the second half. And of course, if you look at the bracket, the Sweet 16, USC could play Kentucky. That might be a pretty tough matchup for them. And of course, we already talked about on last show we did. UConn could face a Reagan Beers Oklahoma team. So both of those matchups could get a little bit interesting. But in all likelihood, I think this matchup is just bound to happen again in the Elite Eight. But it's certainly not really the draw I think UConn was looking for. Maybe they would want to see a different team in the Elite Eight. I think even though Juju and USC lost that Big Ten championship game to UCLA after beating them twice in the regular season, I feel like USC still has a ton of momentum going into this tournament. It has seemed like some points during the regular season, this might be Juju's time to lead USC to the promised land just as a sophomore. And then, of course, on the other side here at UConn Nation, you have Paige Beckers coming into her last year, her last ride in the March Madness tournament talked about it since the beginning of the season, how special it would be for her and for all of UConn, the UConn family, to watch Paige Beckers lead this team in her senior year to the promised land, and finally, after was like a 9 year title drought now, to finally bring it back home to UConn. So I think we have two really special storylines going on here, and to just see that clash again in the Elite Eight is going to be special if it does happen.
And I didn't realize that. That was pretty interesting. That was the most watched, what'd she say, most watched women's game in the regular season that you and I was at
Yeah.
USC and UConn. So, Ryan, hey, I mean, I get it. Even though UConn lost, it seems like it was all well worth it for you and I to get on that Southwest flight, right? Let's go over to comments, Ryan, and then we will head on out for the day. Jason D'Amico said, and by the way, I want to thank you to Good Morning America again, Ryan, for El Duncan, Shanae Aguimike, and Andrea Carter for diving into all things March Madness. So a job well done by them. You can always count on them three for great analysis of women's basketball. Ryan, let's go over to Jason D'Amico. He said, nice one, fellas. I think UConn starts off slow because of the small break, but then turn it up in the second half. Let's go. Have y'all thought about having a live game watch? Just a thought. Peace.
Yeah, we haven't really thought about it. You know, the problem with that is I think we can't show the game on YouTube when we're streaming. But you know, it is a possibility. Maybe if they get to the national championship game or Final Four, maybe we'll think about doing it. But yeah, you know, it does seem to happen sometimes during the regular season. UConn gets that winter or Thanksgiving break off where they get 5 or 7 days off. They come out a little slow, but you know that's pretty normal, I'd say, for this team. But I think, you know, despite that, I don't think this game's going to be very close. And like I said, hopefully for the starters, they can get even a little more rest in the fourth quarter of the game, and rest up even more for their second round matchup.
And by the way, they went crazy with it the last video. I know you think the same thing. So it only takes a second to hit that subscribe button, turn your notifications on, like, comment. We love you all a whole lot, believe me. And I know UConn Nation loves you as well, because I receive some insight, Ryan, every once in a while, and you know it's the truth from Huskies Nation, and they love you guys coming through on this podcast. So keep it up. Ryan, how about another one? Grobel said UCLA as number one was not at all a surprise. People need to get off the South Carolina ridiculous hype and Dawn's whining and victimhood. South Carolina has no case for number one. They shouldn't even be number two overall. That should be USC. UCLA was number one in every reveal. Between the last reveal and selection, they split games with USC. All right, so yeah, basically he broke down the bracket for us. So Ryan, I'll keep it quiet, but I don't want to tell everybody what Ryan had to tell me on the phone the other night when I said, Ryan, who do you really have winning it all? And actually, I think they said it in this video on Good Morning America. It's just so hard to go against South Carolina, obviously, until someone knocks them off. And who does that sound like? The Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can make an argument for both UCLA and South Carolina. I think it came down to UCLA winning the Big Ten championship game over USC. I think that's why they ended up getting that number one overall seed. And I do believe they beat South Carolina during the regular season. But, you know, South Carolina having that surge at the end of the season, running through the SEC tournament. Texas was the number one overall seed, I believe, in the AP poll. And of course, South Carolina comes in, takes down Texas in the championship game. So I think that's why they ended up getting the number two overall, you know, in this tournament and getting the one seed. And of course, USC losing in that championship game. I think that's why they ended up getting the last spot in terms of the number one seeds.
All right, Ryan, we'll leave it at that. And the last comment, I knew someone would point this out, because when I listened to the video and watched it over again, like we always do after it's posted, thanks to Austin and Anita for running the sticks in the background every morning for us, every podcast. Ryan, I listened back and I was so hyped for that last check-in and predictions in that last video. In the beginning, I meant to say a breath of fresh air. And Howard Osden, Howard, you have a good ear. He said a fresh of breath air. Ryan, so that's how hyped I was. I don't know if you caught that or not, but hey, we're going to go outside. We're going to leave it at this, and we're going to actually enjoy a fresh of breath air on Saturday. Phil and Rye